people have had track records in the past and then turned out to be like dodge.
You're kidding me.
Pain, hurt, tears.
This podcast has just turned into an agony aunt session, hasn't it? Yeah. Welcome back to ProBuild 360 TV and welcome to the Onsite Podcast. Our guest today is Shane Traynor, who is the co-founder of CO-ARCH architectural practice and the co-presenter of the Property Developers Network. Shane, why don't you tell us a little bit about both of those endeavours?
Cool, yeah. Thanks for having me on the podcast. First of all, it's a wonderful place and amazing offices, by the way. So
thank you.
Thanks
Appreciate
for the tour. Love everything about this place. Brilliant. So so I'm the co-owner and director of CO-ARCH Architects. We're actually based about 20 minutes away from here at Steam House, which I'm sure you're familiar with, innovative hub in Birmingham. And I'm also the co-presenter, like you said, of the Developers Network in Birmingham. So I've been running that for 2.5 years. And CO-ARCH has been going for be 5 years this October now. So
Wonderful.
Very much involved in the property community, if you like.
Yeah, and particularly developers as well. And are you working with some specific developers at the moment?
I'd say, I don't know, don't really know who knows who, but we're doing a few Class MA developers at the moment that are working on like commercial conversions.
Right, yeah.
New builds, not so much, maybe on your luxury one-offs, Four Oaks Way, Tanworth in Arden. Mm-hmm. But we do work across England, so we've got...
Oh, really?
We do. We don't just focus on the Midlands.
So how do you manage that?
We travel.
Really?
We do.
So it's not satellite offices and remote people that are spread out. You just get stuck in.
Yeah, exactly. So we've actually got quite a few projects down in Kent Way and down in Newquay.
Oh,
because
really?
My co-director actually lived in Newquay for about 6 months and picked up some commercial conversion projects down there.
Brilliant.
So when we've got a new project, we'll probably just go down there, meet existing clients that we've got just to check in on site or where, just to catch up if it's in planning. And then go and survey the new projects and make a...
So you're a bit of a rolling stone then.
Yeah, we're on tour.
Yeah, on tour. Yeah, that's
tour
brilliant.
Doing the projects.
Yeah,
but
nice.
we are very much looking to do more projects in the Midlands, of course. But we were chatting about this earlier. It's quite a competitive industry to be in. But being part of the Developers Network, we get to work with developers just going into developments and also that are probably doing their 3rd, 4th, 5th project now, but we're not working with anyone with the likes of Elevate or anything like that.
Yeah, I'll introduce you to Sam Nathan, and then Sam's been Sam's on the podcast.
I like Sam. Yeah, he's a good bloke.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I've been to one of the Property Developers Network, and I've got the bug. I'll be back soon. But what struck me was that it was very practical. It was very real. It wasn't just you go to a lot of things that. You either have people, on the panel talking about, concepts and things that are going on in the industry, but nothing really comes of it. But it felt like something that if you stick with it, go once, twice, 3 times, you're going to be making relationships that have real world outcomes very, very quickly. Is that something that was conscious or consciously put together or?
Yeah, absolutely. So we saw a gap in the market for property developers, like a property development focused networking event, because you have ones with like HMOs, buy to let, maybe the smaller bits and bobs. Yeah. So we wanted to bring something that was development focused and like bring like planning consultants on board, principal contractors to do talks, because it's like a lot of this is like, very much like...
You've got Litchfield's there, haven't you? The planning consultants.
Yeah,
they're quite involved.
They've come a few times. We've had Stansgate planning consultants.
Stansgate,
they're our sponsors. But we actually have had Litchfield, a chap called Miles. He's come a few times in the past. And because it's like, what are the changes? Like, what's going on? So we get these industry professionals to come in and do talks, update, even down to like, so that we've got a talk happening in October of streets accountants, and they're going to talk how to the most tax efficient way to set up your group structure for developments.
So the
That is
special
important.
purpose vehicles.
Exactly.
Right,
And
okay.
how to loan money from like your holding company to your SPV, tax free, etc.
Oh, really?
All
Okay.
legal ways to do it. So how can you structure your developments the most tax free way to save the most money?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were chatting just now upstairs about the challenges that we face as developers, and if it's not planning, which is on the tip of everyone's tongue, I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah.
But if somehow you've got planning is, as you mentioned earlier, it's already got planning permission, predetermined, and at the point of acquisition. It's going to be the finance that's going to be the challenge, or it's going to be something else. It could be a supply chain issue or whatever else. So, but finance is a big one, and I think it's the last thing that everyone thinks of. I mean, maybe the more inexperienced developers, it can be left as a bit of an afterthought, because I think maybe the feeling, and I'm saying this as someone I'm not 30 projects deep as a developer. So I'm still learning, but I would say that people maybe think if you can acquire the site and you can get the planning application to approval, the money will be there. Don't worry about it. But the thing is, it's such a convoluted world, development finance, and there's so many different frameworks, and there's so many different whether you go combined service with the structural warranty and the development finance and all these sorts of structures for it. Something to really, really keep your eye on the ball. I just think there's so many unknown variables, so many moving parts, and such interesting dynamics. Like we were talking about the way that you can have the combined service of structural warranties and development finance by one company. I think they technically have to be two companies, but it's generally they're sort of teaming up, and it's a really unusual dynamic, and it's interesting and new. So you've got people at the Developers Network that are looking at that kind of stuff and helping people understand it.
So I'll just to give you an example of one chap who came to the very first event back in October 2021, and like he had this Class MA deal in Bromsgrove. And he'd agreed a purchase, but actually he didn't actually have the capital to be able to fund the build or anything, and he didn't really want to go down the development finance route. So he went like 2 or 3 times for our event, like what you said. You go 2 or 3 times, you start to establish some relationships. That's right. Yeah. And he actually found his investor there.
Oh, there you go.
We're talking $700K investment that he, in this project, but like he didn't know this guy before. Sat down with him, ran through the figures. He worked. Got this investor, then he set up his SAS pension through our network. The insurance broker was involved. He used Steve and I just to run past like sense check GDV. Obviously Class MA, he asked the planners about phase 2, which was a more modern building next door.
Right.
But like he says, it can be an afterthought for some people. Like there's this. I'm sort of torn still now, like the chicken and egg situation. Like, if you got the deal, will the money come? Or do you find the money first, build a relationship with the investors, and then go and find the deals?
It's a real chicken and egg, because, well, try and answer that. That's an interesting one, because here's the thing. So the problem with the chicken version, which is get the find the site and say, do you know what, this is in our ballpark. I know we can do this. Numbers stack up, and whatever else. Yeah. And then you try to find the finance. You quickly discover that it's not that quick and it's not that simple. And you're either sat on a site that is, just a liability, crime and social behaviour. You've got security measures in place that are costing you every month that goes by, and you can't get that finance that quickly, or you lose the acquisition entirely because you see it and you haven't got the money in place.
You lose it.
So you're actually window shopping. Really, you're looking at stuff that you
lose
can't
the
afford,
offer and the credibility. Then
yes, and that's a big one, is the credibility, because land agents do not waste their time. Yeah. So it can take you 10 years just to get in with land agents and get them showing you sites that are off the market. But then the other way around, who really has pots of money sitting there waiting to go? they're usually money's usually working for people that have got the money, and it's out there working and it's tied up in stuff.
Yeah, and that one is as well. So I've come across potential investors before where they've like, I'm just going to throw this random figures. I've got £1 million to invest. Yeah. Okay, great. So you bring them a deal, but they only want to part with, let's say, 100. So in theory, they haven't got have they actually got £1 million to invest?
What's really on the table?
Yeah, like this is where you need to have these upfront conversations and build the relationship to get to establish them as an investor and say, well, actually, if you certified them as an investor as well,
you could have £10 million investors, but really, that they'll throw 100k in. To something at any one given point in time. They might have £1 million available for investment, but for any one project, and you need to know that, because then you need 10 of those guys.
What are they willing to give you as an individual? And maybe that 100k is like, they might have told you I've got $1 million to invest, but not $1 million to you. It might just be the 100k to the one that trial you, like a smaller loan. That's sometimes been the case.
What sort of return on investments are you seeing people expect?
It really depends. So, going back to the example from the developers network, I'm pretty sure that was just a loan agreement, 11.5% or something like that. But then other investors, they might want a joint venture agreement to say, well, they want some of the profits and be part of the SPV.
Yeah, you got much experience of JVs and stuff? Like, they're slightly more rare, but like, for example, one of the things about us is that being a main contractor, developer, with the supply chain for the finishes, the products, architecture, interior design, everything under one roof, is that we're able to, if we were to, for example, come in with we brought a project that's brought to us as a main contracting job, but the developer is, struggling with the figures and stuff like that, and we need to cut back on the build cost for them, but we can take a profit share as a JV. There's real flexibility there. Yeah,
that's where it can work really well.
Really, really. If something like that works, it works better than anything, because what you're doing is you're both punching above your weight together. Yeah, you're greater than the sum of your parts, and your builder is helping the developer do a development that really hits a bit big for him. So that's something that's really great to explore. Obviously, it's more rare. It requires a lot more trust.
Yes, because you've never met that person before that has asked you to, could you quote on that project, but you've never met them. But the deal looks good on paper. What are they like?
Well, it needs one of two things. It either needs absolutely bulletproof contracting from both sides, legal terms, or it needs trust that is, you would only have for your family, sort of thing. Yeah. So if you've got one of those two things in place, that's what I'm particularly excited about, sort of, out there being.
It's hard, isn't it? Because if someone did come to you with a raving deal and you're like, well, let's JV, but and you're like, but you don't know that person, but maybe they've got a good track record to a degree, but people have had track records in the past and then turned out to be like dodge. Because it can take like anything, a minimum 3, sometimes a minimum 6 months to build a really, really good relationship.
Yes.
To know that,
100%.
Not only is the deal got to align, but I think things like core values have got to align sometimes as well, and like visions have got to align. Like,
definitely,
like you guys are obviously clear, like top of your game in terms of like the quality and finish, right, of your builds. Whereas maybe what about if that developer's like not as bothered and just says they are?
Yeah, you're like,
it's looking into that. Well,
everyone,
the integrity of what's behind the walls.
Yeah, because yes, that's absolutely right. People will often do things like everyone wants to save money on the build.
Yeah.
And that could either be behind the walls, in the ground.
Yeah.
Don't want to do it in the ground, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
But it could be in the walls, it could be in the ground, it could be the finishes. And look, you want to value engineer a job, but if you've got different ideas about where those savings are to be made and so on, it can really start to become unstuck.
Yeah.
So yeah, the alignment of the vision, I think, is a huge one. Particularly on commercial. Yeah. You got like restaurant owners that just want pure luxury on the surface. It's like, have you consulted with them as their partner? You've got to get that you've got to get the installation of your kitchen your commercial kitchen right, because you're not going to be able to facilitate
Yeah.
serving 100 covers
Yeah.
a night with the kitchen that you've specified.
That's really true.
That's
isn't
the kind of things that you need to.
And even like down to like the bathrooms, you can tell you go to some restaurants as well, and you go in it. There's a wow factor when you go to the toilets. It's like you've stepped into a different building and gone back in time. It's like, what's going on here? It's like a back alleyway toilet.
Yeah, that's right. We were at the Mayan in the mailbox last night.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was the 1 year anniversary of the Mayan opening. And that's the opposite. You go in and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Then you go to the bathrooms and you're like, this is unbelievable.
You want to spend more time in the bathroom,
Planning. What are your experiences recently?
Pain.
Hurt. Yeah.
Tears.
Yeah.
And from our clients and from us.
Yeah.
And just to give you a scenario of what we're experiencing right now. So we've just recently got prior approval for Class MA for a client in Digbeth for 5 studio apartments.
Yeah.
The council sent an approval letter with the wrong address on it, with just a different number, just one off.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that client wants to get finance or insurance and they're saying, well, we've got the planning for the 5 apartments, but it's under a different address.
Mm-hmm.
Like how are they supposed to do that? They're gonna get stuck with that. So we contacted the council.
Yeah.
Took 5 weeks to respond.
You're kidding me.
5 weeks to respond. We even CC'd in some of the heads of planning, and that's when we only started to get movement.
Yeah.
And then they said that we actually cannot change just the number because it's already been granted planning, because it's a state government document now and it's public. Like they'd have to almost, I can't remember the wording, but they'd have to like
rescind the one approval,
retract that approval, and then go through the process again.
Not the whole application.
No, we wouldn't have to go. But you'd have to the time delay.
Oh, right.
Just to get the approval document with the right.
So they take it from the last consultation, the last round of consultation for the application.
We'd have to
where
resubmit.
Everyone's agreed.
Yeah, resubmit.
You're resubmitting from that point. That's astonishing.
So, or option B, which is what we went with, was they had to write a letter to us, which is the first time we've had to deal with this, to say, actually, it's our error. It's actually this
and you
address.
Can use this letter as proof in the meantime.
And he is happy with that now to proceed. And now we're on to do the regs. And this actually letter came through. Still going to
cause you problems
this week
because it's unusual. So you're still going to get finance
that happens,
brokers that are sort of like, what is this? And say, nah, I don't like it.
So that's
God.
one element of obviously planning right, and it's slow. And so we had a conversation with Birmingham Council and Lichfield Council and a few of Wychavon actually, but they're actually doing okay. And Bristol's another one. Bristol's in special measures, but let's focus on Birmingham.
Go on then.
So their normal 2-week validation time was 2 weeks. When?
Yeah.
Oh, we're talking like probably a few months ago now.
Right.
Now it's like 7 to 8 weeks validation time, just validation. They want to get it down to 2 days.
Yeah.
So they're having to take what they're having to do. Who wants to?
The council.
Yeah.
The council want to get validation down to 2 days.
2 days. So just to get it back down to the original 2 weeks, which is slow enough, right? Just to get it validated in the portal, right? They're now taking officers off of existing applications to just speed up that, reduce it back down, because obviously it's just there's a lot going on at the moment.
Well, yeah. So
they are understaffed, and I kind of feel sorry for them.
Well, in some circumstances, that's fine, but kind of that's not really our problem,
Everything's being held up, and there's so many like householder applications that are slowing the process down as well.
Yeah.
Like the bigger developers. So a lot of these, so like for instance, your scheme that you're doing, and some of the larger schemes in the city that are going to genuinely like change the way we live and change lives, that need staff working on them, are being bogged down by the smaller applications. Like Mr. and Mrs. Smith that are submitting their own application and submitting it wrong because someone has to still review it and validate it.
Right.
So that's the planning game at the moment.
Because for me, the validation issue, the way that I see it is that if they're being slow on validation, you can say that's being understaffed. How much of a human resource goes into a validation? I mean, you could do that with an email red receipt. right? It's not a lot of work that needs to be done. It's like you're validating it. We've received it. It's gone into the list. Right?
So actually,
it's data processing.
Yeah, it's more so that they need to review to make sure all the correct documents are there.
Okay, little bit of human resources.
It's a little tiny bit of human.
But here's the thing: is that I think that the validation being going from 2 weeks to 7 weeks, you're probably talking a little bit more of an executive decision that the later we validate, the longer we've got for the application. So don't bother validating, work on these. So you're saying they're shifting them back now to like from working on the applications and trying to get them through to decision, and they're going to take those human resources and put them back on validation. But then the backlog's just going to jump up here again. So they're just shifting people from one problem to the other problem, and not fixing either of the problems.
It's really difficult, and they're one of. Well, there's not hundreds and hundreds of councils, but they're one of many councils that are facing this challenge at the moment.
I heard there was a particular local authority that had 9 months where they didn't have a single case officer.
Probably Bristol.
Bristol.
I know they're in special measures.
I'll find
at
out.
the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's slowing everything down, and I think we looked at permitted development extensions, householder, including loft conversions. There's approximately 130 to 150 per month in Birmingham alone that go through the validation process. So imagine
for permitted development, so certificate of lawful development.
Yes,
yeah, okay.
Not prior approval.
Yeah.
And so imagine 150 a month. If one person's doing all those, that's a lot of work to get through, right?
Yeah.
And that's just on that element. And if you look at all the other stuff like satellites on roofs and adding a window to a commercial building, all these little bitty applications, it adds to thousands a month that go through to lots.
Yeah, and I to a degree, I share your sympathies to say they're understaffed. There's tens of thousands of, like you say, little bitty applications that need just all this administrative process. But well, fine. So find another system, find another way of handling this stuff.
Yeah.
Or see, the problem is that I've always said, whenever we're talking about the planning system, it's silly to say, well, just get rid of it. Just get rid of the regulations and the policies and this and that, because we want the towns and cities to look beautiful and like they've been thought through, and we want them to work in terms of the highways and all this stuff. Town planning, the planning departments, the local authorities in that regard are extremely important. And there should be a great deal of reverence for what they do. Yeah. The problem is the way they're doing it doesn't work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
It needs a reform.
That perfectly brings us on to the subject of Rachel Reeves' comments, new government, and pretty much what anyone that I've seen over the last few weeks has asked me is, what do you reckon? Is it all just hot air, or do you think? And I'll give you my opinion first.
Sure,
that it's one of 2 or 3 situations. They're either saying all the right things and it's just hot air and nothing will happen, and we'll get what we got with Gove, which is just like, no, don't want to talk to anyone, don't want to listen to the builders, don't want to listen to the developers. We don't really have any, we're doing something about it, but you don't need to worry about it. Yeah. Or you're gonna get, they're saying all the right things, but they think they know what the answers are, which would be an equally big mistake, because I can guarantee that they don't. Only after, I've been running around on building sites since I was 14 years old. It's 23 years in this game. Yeah. And only at late stages of my career am I starting to understand how the ins and outs of it really, really work, and be able to form some decently thoughtful policies. Yeah. Most of these politicians have never been in the industry in the way that people that I've learnt from have. They need to be talking to us.
100%.
They need to be coming to the House Builders Association. They need to be coming to the National Federation of Builders and consulting with us, listening more than talking. Yeah. If we can get some of that, great. I've got hope.
Yeah, it's really difficult to say at this stage, because in the history of history, right? It's especially whilst I've been alive, it's people that have come into power have said we're going to do X, Y, Z. Not much of it has been fulfilled. What obviously the guys did, or the Conservative did before they left, was lax like the Class MA and the Class Q So the Class of May, they increased the floor space to unlimited,
Yep.
which was great. And then they abolished the 3-month rule where you don't have to wait 3 months before you can start that process of starting that commercial conversion. Same with the Class Q, which is agricultural, so residential. You can they doubled that in size. So they're like pro things. Why it took so long, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah. And they do that stuff on the way out because there's a general election coming up.
Yeah,
and all this
it's
kind
almost
of
like
stuff.
definitely they
It's
hold
a
off.
bit of desperation, and they'll shove stuff through to try and get votes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if so, it's a good point, because if governments acted like with the sense of urgency that a party that is facing removal from power acted all the way from the start of their term for 4 or 8 years, you can make some real change. The problem is they get over the line with the general election, and either we have the same party in place, or we have a change of government, and they're like sit on their laurels. They just don't want to rock the boat for some time, and only then coming up to the general elections do you see change. It'd be nice to see something different.
Well, what is it? They want to build 1.5 million houses in
Over the next
5 years.
Over the
The
next
target's
10
been 300,000 a year. It's never been hit ever since the target was. So it's on. That's why I'm personally quite skeptical. Like
my problem is with the numbers, not the numbers as in the numbers too high or too low. The problem is seeing a number as the target.
Yeah.
Is the problem. So first of all, I'm much more interested in shifting the conversation towards home ownership.
Yeah.
Because I think that whilst this is business, and we're here doing a podcast because we're promoting our businesses and that sort of stuff, the truth is that behind it all, whether it's house building or anything to do with the built environment, we're talking about the fabric of society, and rental populations are transient and got no stake in the community. They're rootless, and they're it's not a good thing. That it should be a stepping stone. It should be an emergency situation. That's what rental should be for, or it should be moving or a short term because you're working somewhere or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I would like to see the conversation shift to home ownership. I'd like to concentrate on British young next generation, making sure that, unlike, how old are you now, Shane?
31.
Right, so I'm 37. So people of our age group, I think it was very, very difficult to get on the property ladder, and I think that's a big one. Is we should be shifting the conversation away from the big number that they want to hit to getting people owning their homes, staying in a home for a long period of time, and hopefully having families and that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And the quality of homes, it's not talked about.
Yeah.
In terms of the political conversation. So if the political conversation is purely about some big number, fine. But if those homes are coming down in 30 years' time for new ones, you're not improving the housing stock.
Yeah, and that's not. It's not exactly sustainable, is it? Like
It's not sustainable.
This is a sort of an argument actually that's been said about sustainability, and like true sustainability is actually using existing buildings and the existing envelope rather than building new builds.
Yeah, so fabric first, retrofit.
Yeah.
We've just done a project in Harborne that we've done as a company. There's no client. Our company is the client. We're done it as a special project that is looking at terrace houses, Victorian terraces, which is the most numerous of all house types in the UK. At the moment, are split down into HMOs a hell of a lot. Very low quality, haven't been looked after or touched up or modernised. And those are really going to waste when those could be... the project that we've done in Harborne has taken this tiny little Victorian terrace and turned it into a really, really impressive, extremely modern, luxury house. And the point of doing it, we used aero barrier for the air tightness, retrofit air tightness. So getting it up in terms of energy performance, making it low bills so it's manageable for, up and coming young families or, whatever. They're not unmanageable financially. There's stuff that's out there that can be done. And that's why I rail against, forget about the big number, that's one small thing that we should be looking at, is the big number that everyone's trying to hit. How many houses are we building? But, with the population at the moment growing for one reason or another by 1 million people a year, or close to,
Yeah.
you're adding a city the size of Birmingham per year, right? That's not going to happen. Well, 1.5 million houses in a 4-year term, right? Birmingham is a city with a population of, what is it, 1.5? Probably 1.5 now, 1.6 million, I would say. In terms of homes, call that, the numbers don't stack up. This isn't going to go on forever. Yeah. We're looking at the problem wrong. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd much rather turn our sights on creative solutions, looking at quality, retrofit, the existing housing stock, and home ownership.
Yeah.
That would be
improving the quality.
Yeah.
What about, I guess, to tackle that issue as well? Because there's so many angles that need to be tackled on this issue. One of them just that popped into my head was large corporations and offshore companies and individuals that own large portfolios and are sitting
100%.
Empty and derelict. That's 100%. An issue.
Yep, city centre,
loads,
office buildings, even apartment buildings.
Even like old defunct cinemas that could become like
100%
mixed use apartments and community centres.
100%,
like the one in Harborne, actually, the Royal.
That's
a big
right.
one. That's just sitting there.
That's sitting there. That's literally at the top of my road.
Yeah.
Literally at the top of my road. I drive past it every day, and the things that could be done with that are just unbelievable. Even if it wasn't completely for housing, if it's a small portion of it towards housing, but then what Harborne could do with up there is a nice green space and just improve the quality of the life of the people there. But there's a ton of stuff going wasted. I agree with you on that. Particularly city centre and the outskirts of the city centre.
Yeah.
Definitely. But this is what I mean, is it's about doing away with not doing away with, it's about making that big number much less of a touchstone, and making it about the more holistic and thoughtful and nuanced approach to the housing crisis.
This is what we need, I think. Actual thinkers in power and parliament and business people, rather than just politicians. This is exactly
what Jonathan Hamford said when he was here.
Business people, Donald Trump, love him or hate him, he ran America when he was in at the time as a business.
Yes, he did.
And I mean, if some of his policies I don't agree with, but other things like he created lots of jobs, made the healthcare better from what I looked at and research.
Unemployment was at its lowest. The economy was stable.
That. Because he's a businessman. Yeah, he's really, love him or hate him, he's a great businessman.
The problem is career politicians.
Yeah,
that's. I think that's what he's trying to get at. We had Jonathan Hamford from Fine and Country here, and he said you should not be allowed to be the minister or even high up in a department when you haven't done 20 or 30 years experience and hard work in that industry. So if you want to be at the top of the Ministry for Housing, you want to be the Minister of Housing, or you want to be active in that department, you need to have been a builder, developer, and been
boots on the ground,
or planning officer, or whatever it might be, boots on the ground for 20 years, 30 years.
Too right. You need that on your CV, not university and work your way.
That's absolutely right.
The political
establishment, the swamp.
Spot on.
Yeah, that's right.
It's
no,
so
I agree
true.
with you. I agree with you there. Is there anything else that you'd like to plug that you got coming up, events, or anything like that, or anything to do with the practice?
So anyone who is interested in coming to the Developers Network, then you can find it on Eventbrite. So just type in the Developers Network Birmingham, and you're more than welcome to come. So even though it is for developers and property development, we welcome anyone who's got an interest and just wants to get
Really?
involved.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, like if anyone wants to understand a bit more and just learn about the industry,
Yeah.
get a good understanding. We should get some of these politicians in for sure.
It'd be great to see some politicians. It'd be great. I tell you, the other one is it'd be great to get some young people that are interested in the world of property development and that stuff. So they can first of all, build their network early. If you're thinking about becoming a developer, you might be 16 or you might be 18 years old.
Yeah.
Start your network early.
Yeah, 100%. Best thing you can do is network, just meet people, and there's just show like willingness to learn, willingness to listen.
Yeah, come and spend your summer if you're at college.
And the energy.
Come and spend your summer with someone there that's willing to have you in the office and see how the industry works.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely, and with like CO-ARCH ourselves, if anyone wants to come and just have a chill in the office and just see how we work and how we do things, we welcome that as well, because as I said, we're at Steam House and we're down the road, and we'd like to meet some new people.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for being with us today, Shane.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.